Welcome back to the county seat. We are now going to discuss the issues of the growing restrictions and the policy changes that affected oil and gas development out in the Uinta Basin. We have somebody from the industry, R.L. Tatman, who's with us, and you are a well service contractor. Mike McKee, Commissioner from Uinta County, and Kent Petros, Duchesne County Commissioner. Thank you all for joining us. In the past few years, the BLM has gone through a process of determining leases. It seemed to be fairly methodical. They developed a policy, and it showed up in the resource management plans, and you moved towards that policy, and now that whole thing has changed. Things, leases have been reversed. They've set new guidelines and standards. The question is, in it moving up the ladder, did it start as policy at the field level, and then that policy was affected by politics as it got further up the line with the new administration?
I would say it's the other way around. We went through the resource management plans. A solid plan was built. It was built at the local level, approved. These are approved resource management plans. And so it was signed in October of 2008. And really when this changed is with a different administration, different regulations, and really has turned upside down the resource management plan.
So it's taken the local and the stakeholders, in your opinion, out of this whole thing?
Yes, absolutely. We have been taken clear out of it. One example of that, there's what's known as new master leasing areas. The administration has announced new leasing guidelines, regulations, and with these new guidelines, we're supposed to have what's known as cooperating agency status. We're to be at the table. We're to be help developing how these master leasing areas would go forward. We were never even informed that meetings were being held. The environmental community has been at the table with the BLM. These are now at Washington level for decision, and the state and local governments were not even involved, not even allowed to be a part of the process. Seems upside down.
BLM's answer to this is, well, there's already hundreds of thousands of acres under lease they're not doing anything with, and that was a point in the story. So the answer being obviously, well, yeah, because there's nothing there to drill for.
It's not that there's nothing there. It's that other areas possess a better prospect. So if you can drill a 30 barrel a day well in one area that you have a permit for, or you can spend the same amount of money to drill a 100 barrel a day well in a different area, it's more logical to save the money, wait until the other permit's approved, and drill the 100 barrel a day well.
So I guess the
economically, it just makes sense that you want to drill the best wells you can.
Wouldn't the BLM argue back then saying, well, that area is already approved, and we don't want to be putting all this other territory out there and ruin it, and drill there, and then have you come back when there's nothing left and drill the 30 barrel a day oil? Why don't take your lumps as you go? I mean, that's an argument that I believe you would hear from the administration, is it not?
Well, and Chad, let me take that just for a minute too. Recently, Bob Abbey came to Utah at the invitation of the governor. He indicated, well, there's 5 million acres of land that's being leased in Utah. Why should we give you more until this is all being leased? And actually, industry's response would be, there's about a third of that is being leased that's actually being produced upon, being produced. There's another third that is really still tied up in the process of the BLM itself in giving the permits. And then there's about another third of that land that's geologically and other reasons is not feasible to go ahead and drill, at least at this time with current prices. And until or unless prices get better, it won't be drilled, or that there's there's a lot that goes into that.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, Kent. This sounds to me, and RL, you can back me up on this. It sounds to me that this actually really is a matter of a process. It's not a matter of number of acres on the ground, because you said a third of those are in process, which means that you've got to keep moving, or you'll basically, well, no pun intended, you'll run out of gas. Is that part of the problem? Is that it takes so long to get these things through, and there's so much mitigation that has to be planned for that yeah, you can drill what's out there till it's tapped, but then it's gone?
Well, I believe so, and the problem is that local governments have been taken out of it. The producers have been taken out of the mix to where, in my opinion, there isn't a common sense approach to it anymore. Someone is making the rules at such a much higher level that the environment, the common sense approach to energy, the economics that was mentioned, they're not part of the mix. They're not part of the decision-making process anymore.
So
we have to remember that we're still in tough economic times. Mm-hmm. Oil companies and operators have investors. If an oil company was to go out and just take a tract of land, say the size of this table, and they're going to drill 100 wells on this, and in the process of doing that, they start on this end of the table, and they find 7 or 8 barrel a day wells. As they move into different geologic areas, they find better wells. So you have leased this whole area, but you have the right to drill it at any time. So through the development of the field, you might choose not to drill this now, and we might move down to your end to drill. Well, once that area is drilled up, the thing that the company's going to want to do is procure the next table over. They're going to want to go out and lease the next table. They're going to try and keep moving that direction until they find the heart of the reservoir. A lot of companies do this through exploration, through just permitting and drilling an exploration well. There are several different types of permits, and there are several different types of wells that are drilled. Now, to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, if we had never drilled on the Tavaputs Plateau, okay, and we went up there and we permitted an exploration well, and we drilled that well, and it was a monster well, like the one in Richfield 6 years ago. Then all of a sudden, every operator in the business wants to move in there and lease that land, just like they did in Richfield. And that's how booms start. Okay, well, once the boom has hit and everybody's in there trying to drill, more and more companies come in. They farm out leases from the bigger companies and they drill in other areas. Well, sometimes those companies will come back over here with a different idea than the big company had that started, and they'll drill another well, a quarter mile from the 7 barrel a day well that we drilled initially, and they'll make a 2,000 barrel a day well.
Okay, so it's
so then everybody shifts focus and they come back here, and now everybody wants the real estate on this end.
Right.
Okay, so because there are leases out there that are not being drilled, it should be no excuse for the government to say, well, we don't need to issue more leases because there's already leases out there.
We're going to come back after the break. We'll have 3 minutes of closing comments about this, and we'll kind of wrap things up. And we'll be back in just a couple of minutes with the county seat.